Hello and welcome. My name is Errity Green, and today I have a pick a card reading for you on how to work through your fears and or resistance. So if you find that anytime you go to take action or make a change or do something new or different in your life or change a pattern, something like that, and you run into fear or resistance, this is the reading for you. So I first encourage you to explore my links below, check out my website, any offerings or events that I have going on right now. And from there, I will post a picture up of your 3 card piles to choose from today. As always, you are choosing from left to right. All right, so card pile 1. Okay, so right off the bat, it feels like there is a history or a story or an experience of some kind of loss or maybe some kind of failure, some kind of defeat, some kind of disappointment. So while a part of you wants to move forward, a part of you wants to stay back. A part of you wants to move forward, a part of you wants to stay back. The part that wants to stay back is simply, it feels like sad, hurt. And I think allowing yourself to fully explore that sadness or that hurt or that disappointment will support you in sort of quote unquote clearing the air so you are able to move forward. So it feels like, again, that disappointment, that hurt, that defeat, and I feel like that's what you're carrying with you as sort of like a baggage or a burden that's preventing you from moving forward in the ways that you'd like. So I am feeling another energy here. Okay, so this is the energy. I'm like, what is that? Okay, so I feel like if you've ever heard of some of internal family systems or somatic IFS, there is a theory out there, and I discovered this with my own experience. So you don't have to know the theory, you don't have to know a book, you don't have to Google anything, but I do like to give people something to work with if they aren't aware, and they haven't listened to 1,000 readings of mine, not that I have that many. I give you somewhere to go to look into it more. I discovered this within myself as I, did my inner work or sat with myself more or less, sat with my feelings. It's like you experience different parts of yourself, and they can sometimes feel in conflict. One part wants this, one part wants that, one part wants to stay safe, one part wants to move forward. And in this case, I feel like there's a part of you that's trying to protect you from additional hurt, additional disappointment, additional defeat. They feel like this was such a blow to you, or a blow to your ego, or a blow to your plan, or a blow to your self-esteem, or a blow to your confidence, that it wiped you out. And that part of you is scared to let you go forward once more, to try again, to do it again, even if it's not the same thing, even something similar, even if it's stepping outside of your comfort zone, again, changing up a pattern, anything that wouldn't be sort of the same old, or status quo. This protector part puts on the brakes like, we know what happened last time. This didn't go too well. So I feel like there's a part of you that's just deeply saddened at whatever that loss, failure, defeat, disappointment was. And there's valid feelings there. And if you haven't explored that completely or exhaustively, that might be an opportunity for you to really dive into those feelings. What really hurt, what hurt the most? What was the thing that really kind of destroyed you, like diving into it to contact and just to get to know it, right? Become more intimate with that experience. Maybe there was a set of beliefs there that was triggered. Maybe it was a pattern from childhood or a re-traumatization from something else, getting to know it. And there isn't like a perfect answer, like, oh, you have to go looking for this particular thing. It's more about just gaining intimacy and self-knowledge. And through that experience, you might also find a clearing or, gentle release of old emotions. You don't have to go searching for that, looking for that, hoping to have a big clearing or catharsis. It's more about just getting to know that part of you, what it is that really hurt. So that way you have this greater self-awareness. I feel like somehow that's going to be a key for you in knowing what the true wound was, right? Sort of what the truth of that experience was for you. So there's exploring that and allowing whatever to come forward wants to come forward. And there's working with that protector part that's making sure you're under lock and key here, and it's not that traumatic and it's not that intense and it doesn't feel like that locked in or rigid, but it does feel like this part of you is like, No way. And I think it's because it did destroy you or debilitate you in some way, or it just touched you or moved you or hurt you so deeply. It was such a massive broken heart that part of you just doesn't feel safe with you trying again or doing something different, again, stepping out of the status quo in some way in your life. I do feel like it's connected to a previous loss and that it'll be something similar. So like, let's just say, right, if you lost a business and then went to start another business, something like that that's connected, right? A similar theme, a similar thread. I'm not getting anything specific. Some of you, I do feel like maybe a child kind of situation, not childhood, but maybe something happened with your children. There was a mistake there, or just a big loss. And so trying again to conceive another child or something of that nature. It doesn't have to be those things, right? These are two examples, but I do feel like there should be or would be a common thread between the two, but not necessarily. It could be any change, any step forward. The protective part shows up and says, nuh-uh. I think working with this protective part, getting to know it, to where it can feel trusting again, to where it can feel safe. And then also grieving this loss and really getting clear on what it was that sort of, what was the bullseye of that pain point. I think getting to know that within yourself is going to be important and helpful. But I think there's more here. Okay, so let's see what else here. How to work through your fears and or resistance. How to work through your fears and or resistance. 1 second, I want to sit with your cards. So part of this process is opening up your mind. So it's almost like that first set of cards was about like opening up your heart again, right? Grieving what you need to grieve, getting really clear on what hurt you the most, knowing that there's a protector or a part of you that's concerned about you going into this again where you might get hurt in a big and drastic way once more. And then the other part is like opening your mind and realizing it doesn't have to go the way that it once did. There is a chance of it going a different way. It's like we can get set on a story or a pattern because our mind, especially because it's survival based, doesn't want us to face hurt, pain, or suffering again. So it's gonna be like, nuh-uh, no way, don't do it. We don't want to repeat that mistake, right? So it's like if we make a mistake, or even if it's not a mistake, but this is an example, we're going to be very kind of fearful and vigilant, hyper vigilant of, oh, I don't want to do that again because it could turn out to be like this, right? And so our mind ties behavior to consequence and makes it out to be like how it's always going to be. There's a rigidity there, an attachment there. And it's like freeing that up, opening up more space to support the recognition that there are more potentials. There are other possibilities. It's not always going to go the way that it went before. In fact, it's statistically highly unlikely it'll go the way it did before again. Does that make sense? Because it already happened. So more than likely, it's all up from here, not down, statistically speaking. So it's a matter of recognizing there are an infinite number of possibilities and potentials, especially with new context, new variables, new you, new experiences. It's kind of detaching yourself from what happened in the past, supporting yourself to soften that a little bit, softening. So anytime you think about it too, you might think about softening that rigidity or that way of thinking or thinking back to the past and letting that sort of connection or that old tie start to unravel. So anytime you think about business, right, you don't immediately go back to loss of business. Or anytime you think about going back to those original examples, right, conceiving a child, you don't immediately go back to the miscarriage or the loss of the child. Does that make sense? And I know that's an especially sensitive, tough topic. And I don't know why that example is coming up, but it has. And so I'm sharing it in the event that it's meant to reach somebody specific. But your experiences might look very different. But my point is we want to get to a point where things have opened enough and softened enough, when we've created enough space to where we can think about the thing without going back to the old thing. Okay, so let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, it's like saying there's a transition happening here, an openness, spaciousness, availability, receptiveness. It's going to allow that abundance to come in. Number one, things have changed. Times have changed. The season has changed. Things have changed for you, and you're not going to get the same outcome you once did. And even if you did, it would look different and or you would respond differently or adapt differently because now you've learned. So it's like there's no way it goes the same way it once did. It's not just this formula of 1, 2, 3. It's going to be something like 1, 8, 12, right? Something different. There's just no way for it to add up in the same way that it once did. But this availability, this softening, this gentleness, this grace that you're giving yourself and this process and this idea of failure or whatever, as long as all of this is softening, you're creating that receptivity and that space for this new abundance to come in. So card pile 1, how to work through your fears and resistance. This is about letting yourself grieve, getting clear on what that true wound was, really hitting the nail on the head with that. This is, getting to know that protector part and basically just building a relationship with yourself so it can see, and it maybe even creating an action plan. Like if A happens, then I will do B. If B happens, I will do C. Sort of like a contingency plan. So that protector part feels like, okay, you have a plan of action. This won't destroy you this time because you're bigger, stronger, wiser, and you know what to do if something were to happen. Give that protector part something to work with. And then you're going to soften, these rigidities or ideas about what once happened. So when you think of business or baby or whatever your situation is, want to start softening that old connection to the past, because the past no longer exists. It might exist in your mind and sometimes in our bodies. But the more we can lock into the present moment where we are now, feet firmly on the ground, really connecting to this present moment, using our 5 senses can be very helpful in that regard. Really engaging with our physical environment here and now as it is can help the old energy to release. The only reason the old energy is still there is because somewhere we're still identifying with it. Somewhere we're still holding on. Somewhere we're still not letting go. Somewhere we're still holding bitterness or resentment or upset. That's why I want to do that grieving process too, and getting to know and working with that protector part. Last but not least, as these shifts occur, and they are already occurring at subtle levels, nuanced levels, energetic levels, and so on and so forth, you're going to find that the abundance can come through. You're probably already experiencing that. You've had an upgrade to where you're able to feel, say, more joy or more aliveness or more peace or things that you maybe didn't for a while, but also other forms of abundance. You're already seeing this, but it can continue to flood in the more space that's made available through the letting go of this old defeat, disappointment, hurt, upset. Okay, that abundance can come through, and I feel like abundance is being promised to you. It's saying there's a new outcome this time. It's not going to go the way that it did in the past, and it's because you did the work, and it's a different time with different variables. So card pile 1, that is your reading. Do share your comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback, what card pile you chose, what dilemma or experience that you're facing that lines up with this reading. And of course, like, subscribe, share, and I will see you next time. All right, card pile 2, how to work through your fears or resistance. So right off the bat, I'm getting the energy of control, and that control keeps things rigid. Control can keep things stuck. Control can keep things stuck in the same loop, the same cycle, the same pattern of outcomes, results. The more that we hold on or try to control or try to ensure or guarantee a specific outcome, it actually makes it more difficult for some of the, not all of them, right? Because we can secure some outcomes in terms of what's in our control. We can secure those outcomes, but it makes it more difficult for the outcomes that we can't control to come in. Does that make sense? So as an example, let me try to think of, I'm trying to think of an example actually. Okay, so I'm going to go to business because it's always an easy example for me, and it's something I have a lot of experience with. So, and this isn't going to be, I'm not saying I'm reading this from you, this card pile. We might get examples, we might not. You might have to apply it to your circumstances, but this is an easy one so I can apply and share with you what I'm trying to say through this energy, which is, let's just say you have a business. There's plenty of things you can control, right? You can control how often you go on social media. If it's an online business, you can control what products and services you sell. You can control what you say in terms of how you communicate. You can control your professional development and how much you hone your skill set and knowledge and wisdom, etc. There's a lot of things you can control. But here's what you can't control. You can't control who buys, how often they buy, if anybody buys, if the business is successful. Does that make sense? Okay, so getting in line with that sort of philosophy and understanding, it's like we can try and control and hold on really tight. And that's going to secure those outcomes that we can control. But it makes it more difficult for, say, the universe to step in. It makes it more difficult for energy to come through. It makes it more difficult for the spiritual support to come through, or even just new energy to flow into the system. So let's just say you were in a pattern of some kind of control, which most of our actions, habits, patterns are within our ego identity. There's some kind of control element there. And let's just say through our control patterns in our business, we're making $30,000 a year. Well, unless we change something, either something else, again, we can control, or we make ourselves more available and receptive to outside help, whether it be the divine or other people, we're going to be making and creating the same results. Okay. So ultimately, we want to make some room for assistance from quote unquote the divine or God, Great Spirit, Cosmos, Universe, and sometimes even other people. This could be literal collaboration, letting other people help you, letting other people support you, letting other people get to know you. For some of you, it's going to be more of, because I do feel, this could be more energetic or spiritual in terms of letting go long enough for quote unquote Jesus to take the wheel. That way, you're letting go of control and letting yourself not only be supported, but also have a different outcome than what you've continued to create in the past. But for some of you, I actually feel like this is a person, and it's like, or people, where it's like literal hands on deck. And, when you're holding on so tight, and let's just say you even need support, want help, whatever, you're not going to be able to get it if you're holding on that tight and you're not letting someone else take the wheel, right? So let's see what else is here. So how to work through your fears and your resistance. Yeah, so there's a fear here of if I let go of control, something bad is going to happen. If I let go of control, some worst case scenario will ensue. If I let go of control, nothing's going to turn out. If I let go of control, nothing's going to turn out the way that I want them, right? So some of this might be due to high standards. It's not going to be the case for everyone. I'm not feeling this as like a primary energy, but it's there in terms of like, if you like things a certain way, usually, and I can relate to this, we don't want someone else to come in and do it because we like the way that we do it, right? So it's like when you aren't flexible on your standards or how you want something to go or how you want something to look, you tend to have to sort of take over, right? If I want something done right, I've got to do it myself, right? Little Mermaid, I think Sebastian says that. But again, it's preventing that same, it wouldn't be here if you didn't want some support or some help, if you didn't want it to go differently. But there's resistance there because you don't trust, because you fear the worst, because something might go wrong, something might happen, someone might F it up, and then you have to be in charge of those consequences. They're going to make a mess, you're going to have to fix it, right? So part of this, for some of you, and this feels like a good many of you, I feel like you are one to take responsibility for other people. And I think this is actually where a lot of this issue comes from, and this is probably a pattern that you're not even aware of. I feel like it's pretty dominant for this group, so you'll have to let me know, card pile 2, if this resonates and if this is a revelation or something new for you, because I do feel like for many of you it is, where you didn't realize that part of your controlling aspect here has to do with, yes, not trusting people or trusting them to do it well or to get it done or to do it well enough or right enough, or that the worst, wrong, bad thing is going to happen in the world, but also that you take responsibility for other people, maybe for their feelings, for their messes, for their mishaps, for their consequences. And I don't even know if you realize that you're doing that. With that said, because we can do that sort of subconsciously, right? Especially we were raised that way, to anticipate someone else's needs, to step in. And then there's an even deeper pattern here that you take responsibility for their feelings, mishaps, whatever, because it also brings you more peace. So let's assume you're an empathic individual, because I think it's most relevant for this card pile. Let me know if these things are ringing true, because this is pretty darn specific, I think. But overall, I'm getting the picture, the feel of someone who's very empathic, who can feel other people's stuff, who's relatively sensitive. And so if there is an emotional upset in the room or some kind of upheaval or turmoil, you're going to feel that. If there's some kind of chaos or hyperstimulation, you're going to feel that. That might feel like an overwhelmment or overload for the system. And it's like you start to short circuit. So maybe as a child you learned, okay, I don't want to keep short circuiting all day. This does not feel comfortable. This actually feels very uncomfortable. So I'm going to help them do that, and I'm going to help them do that, and I'm going to make sure that they feel good, and I'm going to make sure that gets done, because if all those are taken care of and all this is just so, they're going to be okay. And then if they're okay, then I can be okay and I'll feel okay. Are you guys catching on to that? So I feel like that's a major pattern or a dominant pattern for this group. And so I think a huge part of this is becoming aware, and then also recognizing what's yours and what's not. It's actually not your responsibility to go in to fix everything, arrange anything, manipulate everything just so that everything goes just so that you can be at peace. The better work, or the wiser work, work smarter, not harder, is working on your own quote unquote nervous system regulation and working with yourself to create more space and capacity for all of life's quote unquote upheavals or whatever. I've used a lot of freaking quote unquotes in this group, whatever. I don't like using trendy terms without putting something on them. But I feel like, where was I? So the work is going to be working with yourself to develop greater capacity so that you can experience these things without overloading, overwhelming, short-circuiting, so that you're not having to take more than was yours. Again, the control is tied to a few different things here. I think it's to your sensitivity, also to not trusting other people, also fearing the worst case scenario. But you're going to feel much more relieved, much more relaxed, much more at peace, and much more content and satisfied and fulfilled with life when you're able to let go of the wheel sometimes and let other people take that wheel for you. The neighbor's dog is over. He's trying to come in. You stay out there, sir. He's listened. So there's a part of you that wants to be able to let go of control, to enjoy life a little bit more, to live it up a little bit more, to have more joy, or to even just let other people help. So you can kind of sit back, relax, enjoy the ride a little bit more. And yet there's a part of you that's very controlling for all the reasons we already shared. And that's resistance. And so you're unable to actually let go to accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish. Not like accomplish a goal, but your values. You do want to lean back a little bit. You do want to let go a little bit. You do want to live not up here, but down here, right? So let's see what else. And I feel like a part of this is seeing other people for their capability. So you might be someone, maybe you grew up with a lot of people who seemed either out of control or didn't seem like they had it together or just seemed incompetent in some way, to where you didn't really trust them, not with you and maybe not with their own lives. You're like, shoot, I don't know about this person. They're going to need some help. And so I feel like what happened as a result is you gained a template, an understanding of people based on, number one, perceived incompetence just based on what you witnessed growing up. But you also, because again, you have fears of worst case scenario, you feel like you can come in, save the day, be the superhero to make sure that the worst case scenario doesn't happen to them, which of course would also affect you. These are close relationships and loved ones. For some of you, these might be partners, spouses, kids, whatever. But a part of your work here, part of your job is seeing that they are responsible for themselves and trusting them to be responsible for themselves. And the more you can do that, even trusting them to have their own feelings and to work through their own turmoils and work through their own upheavals so they can develop their own sense of self, their own sovereignty, and not have to rely on anyone, not just you, but even as they age, on anyone else. Right now with sort of all the control and interference, it might be difficult for them to even find their own competence. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy for both you and them. More or less your behavior is saying, I don't trust you to be competent. You're not very competent. From what I've seen, you're not competent. So I'm going to take care of it. Right. And then from their perspective, it's how they're seeing it overall is, oh, well, I'm not really competent and I can't really do it well. Someone else can do it for me. And not only do they develop a lack of confidence or competence within themselves, but then they start leaning back into this entitlement of, oh, someone's always going to take care of me. Right? Someone else will do my emotional work for me. Someone else will clean up my mess. Someone else will take my consequences. So there is something to take a look at there in order to properly let this person stand on their own 2 feet and ensure a healthy relationship between both people. Yeah, so there's something here about seeing the bigger perspective. And, a lot of these control mechanisms, I know you came here for fear or resistance. And so I feel like, we talked about fearing worst case scenarios, fearing how other people might do it, and having that resistance and fearing the overstimulation, all those things. So how can you actually work through it? I think this is the practical piece, is when you start noticing yourself, and it's going to take some time and some awareness in the moment to start noticing, because it can be very subtle and nuanced when you're jumping in to help someone with their feelings, as an example, when it's really not your role or position or responsibility, right? That letting them stand on their own 2 feet a little bit and having that discernment of, oh, no, they actually really need me right now, or no, they don't. So you're going to have to learn that. You're also going to have to learn, okay, when am I feeling overloaded, overwhelmed, and what do I need to do to regulate my own nervous system before I even enter to try to help anyone else? Let's focus on me. Also, again, returning back to your own nervous system regulation in general, because that's what sort of caused this whole pattern in the first place of getting overwhelmed or feeling chaotic or really a lot of discomfort, and then trying to manage and hyper vigilant the environment just to feel at peace. So trying to, aiming to develop peace regardless, cultivating peace just as a way of life, as a way of being, as the status quo. Noticing when you have an impulse to jump in, to do the thing, to go the extra mile, noticing those impulses, trying to step back as much as you can, and actually, instead of going in for somebody else or doing it for somebody else, right, or keeping your hands on the wheel, you're actually going to focus on, what do I need right now? Or how can I regulate myself? Or how can I support my nervous system? Or how can I support my body, my peace, what I need right now? Okay, so it's turning the focus from controlling the environment or even controlling other people or intervening with other people, turning the attention on you, asking what you need, how you can support your nervous system, so you can eventually, ultimately develop that capacity to be able to deal with any chaos that ensues, but also encounter even, mistakes, failures, disappointments that other people engage in, where you're able to just let that happen even without jumping in to fix it or save it, right? So they don't do the dishes. You're not jumping in to save it and do it, right? If your nervous system is at peace and that's something you want to do, you'll do it, but otherwise you sit back and you don't. So anything else that wants to come through here? Yeah, I feel like this is something that kind of drives you crazy a little bit. Whichever part, there's been a lot of different themes we've talked about. This drives you crazy a little bit. And the more you can sort of detach yourself and look at this from a more objective, neutral standpoint, say as the observer or witness, the greater ability you'll have to not jump in, because there's a part of you, of course, your main identity has this as its crux pattern. So it's going to take some loosening, some softening, some letting go, maybe even some grieving, even when it hurts, because it's like you want to get up, like this silly, simple example. You want to get up to do the dishes because the person didn't do it, but you're going to have to sit with those feelings of being furious and angry that they didn't do it, and sad that you feel like you have to do it, and actually let yourself, if you need to cry or whatever, feel those feelings, but just let them be feelings. It doesn't mean that you have to go act on it or do it for anybody else. That sounds like a silly, simple example. I'm giving one that's easy so that anyone can apply it to their circumstance, but there are some people who that's a real example for them. They're squirming when someone said they're going to do the dishes and they don't, and then they feel like they have to do it. Okay. So, letting yourself work through those feelings, recognizing, the feelings part is your work to do. Your focus is on you and taking care of you, letting other people step up. And it's going to require you to, let go of that control. But now that you have awareness as to where that control pattern comes from, it has to do with your own nervous system regulation. Now you know what to do as the true solution. So card pile 2, do let me know if this resonates. I have to hear your dilemma, your experience, your circumstance. How does this connect? Let me know. Of course, do like, subscribe, share, and I will see you next time. Thank you, card pile 2. All right, card pile 3, how to work through your fears and or resistance. So I feel like card pile 3, a part of your work is actually sharing, opening up, becoming intimate and connected with others, and that this is going to support you in one way or another to work through your fears, to work through your resistance. So part of your work is sharing your story. A part of your work is opening up and sharing your story. A part of your work is not isolating and keeping it to yourself, and instead sharing and being vulnerable and allowing yourself to go there and allowing yourself to feel your feelings, being 100% supremely honest with yourself about where you are, about how you feel, about how fearful or afraid you are, about how insecure and vulnerable you feel, about your feeling like you need to control or fix or force or whatever. It's being 100% honest with yourself, and then being willing to open up to other people about that truth, about that part of you, because it feels like a couple of things. One is there is something that wants to open up inside of you in terms of there's an intimacy here and a vulnerability that wants to happen in your relationships and your connections, but this could also be even larger or more collective in terms of sharing your experience with the world, or letting other people in on your hardships and letting that be a support for people. How many authors and thought leaders or people who do podcasts or whatever are famous / popular or well known because they were willing to share their story with the collective, to come out and say, yes, this happened to me, this is how I got through it, and I just want to share my story in case it's medicine for other people. So there's that aspect, but there's also a deeper, intimate more aspect around you allowing yourself to open up and become vulnerable with other people. And this is going to support you in being able to move forward and to work through those fears and resistance. It's almost like when you are held or know you are supported, the weight doesn't feel so heavy. The weight doesn't feel so bad. The weight doesn't feel like you're being burdened by a cross. There's a difference between one person carrying a cross and 12 people carrying a cross. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like when we share the burden as a family, as a community, the burden is much less on each person than it is so heavy on one person. And I think this goes in line with that whole theme of community anyway, where it's not all about every person out for himself and every person on their own lonely island. It's like, we are in this together. And if I share with you and you share with me, we share each other's burdens, and it's spread out amongst our family, amongst our loved ones, amongst our community, amongst our family, I said that, our neighborhood, whatever, as opposed to me carrying it all of mine, you carrying all of yours. It's actually a very different philosophy and perspective than most of what the Western culture lives in, where it's like every man for himself. Your problems are yours. I don't want any of your stuff. You take your stuff. That's your responsibility. You take care of you. I take care of me. All right. You do you. Okay, that's the philosophy in Western cultures. This is actually saying, getting to know and practice and finding the people, because there are people, and this is the tribe that you seek, where you carry and share each other's burdens. Your burden is my burden, just as your blessing is my blessing. Everything is shared, and they are all gifts. And when things are shared, they don't hurt so bad, feel so bad. They're just not as much of a heavy weight. Again, imagine someone carrying a cross like Jesus did, right? Carrying that giant cross, can you imagine? Or if you had 12 people around you, if he had his disciples all carrying the cross with him, would it have been nearly as bad? No, it's a shared burden. So there's something here about recognizing and using that and actually truly believing in that. And there are people out there that you can share with in that way. And developing this community and even this willingness to be in that kind of space or that kind of family, that kind of belonging. But this is also about diving deeper into being willing to share your fears and your vulnerabilities and your resistances. And for some of you, or even for all of you, a part of this is also sharing your story, being honest about your vulnerabilities, being honest about what you've been through, your hardships, and sharing how you got through it. Yeah, I feel like your sharing of your truth, your sharing of your fears, your vulnerabilities, your dire attempts to control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is a part of your greater vision, a part of your greater destiny. That you are meant to share your experience, share your hardships, or share your story with the world, and it's actually going to support your greater dream, vision, aspiration, or destiny. So for some of you, if not many of you, you're well aware that this is a part of your destiny or your dream. Maybe you haven't put it all two and two together or started doing anything with it, but I think most of you at least know at some deep level the seed has been planted long since you were born, prior to your conception even. And so you're already aware of this. And then some of you are actively practicing this. Perhaps you already are someone who writes, or someone who journals or blogs or shares your experience on Reels or whatever, where you're already sharing your experience and you're being given the green light here. Yes, share more. Yes, this is the right way. Yes, let yourself be seen, let yourself be heard. And that's what it is, actually feel emotionally moving. Let yourself be seen. Because some of you fear being seen in your vulnerability, in that grave space, in that deep isolation and aloneness, that purgatory we all can live in, that fear of annihilation that we all hold, that no one's really willing to come out there stark naked and say, yes, this is how I feel right now, or this is how I felt before, and this is what I did to get myself out of it. Okay, so it's being willing to be seen. And it's being willing to be seen in your vulnerability, saying, you know what, I have all of these effing problems, and this is my day-to-day insanity, and let me show you the whole real deal. Let me paint you the real picture. Let me show you me stark naked, right? It's like, I will tell you, it's like you're going out there and you're being willing, again, to be seen from head to toe with all of your quote unquote imperfections. And it's almost like, because you accept yourself as you are, and because you are so quote unquote authentic and real, it's like, anything that would have been an imperfection, quote unquote, or flaw, it's actually like divinely perfect, because there's no resistance, there's wholehearted acceptance. And you're showing people in the world that this is a way of living, a way of being. We can accept ourselves for who we are. We can trust that we were built this way, trust our design, trust our identity. We can trust our and flaws. Like this is who we are. And it's just that ownership of who you are as you are in this moment, then in the next moment, and that is going to really connect with people. It's really, really, really going to connect with people, and they're going to be like, wow, this person's like being 100% real and honest with me. Like, say, what? That kind of authenticity, that kind of realness is so rarely seen. And I don't, seen, but like, that's very rarely seen on social media, even in movies, the ones like, consider like Mayor of Easttown. If you guys have seen that show, HBO Max, if you want to check it out. I think that picked up for a lot of people and gained significant traction because it was real. You had a small town, real woman who wasn't, perfect from head to toe, didn't have endless plastic surgery, and kind of carried herself in kind of a funny way. And, everything was real. Like, there was no holds barred. We're not trying to like glamorize that at all. They were trying to show you real life in parts of America or Western culture. And so similarly, it's like going out there and being like, this is who I am, and this is what my day is today. And I'm accepting myself as I am, right? And it could be like, and this is just a silly kind of example. I'm 10 pounds overweight. I drank a venti Starbucks today. I yelled at my kid. I ate a muffin, and I didn't go for my gym appointment, and I was late for my son's school, right? You can say it all. You don't have to say all of that, but it's like that example of being like, this is what it's like to be real. This is real life. We're not trying to be perfect or put up these pretenses or facades or masks or whatever and be just so and molded and shaped into perfection. There's something about being real, authentic, and true about your experience, about your identity, like just who you are on a day-to-day basis, instead of trying to wear the mask or the pretense or the facade of, oh, I'm perfect, I got it all together, I'm strong, I got this, no problem, I got this taken care of. I feel like that's what you're getting away from. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's an important part of you too, to be able to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and carry on. But there's another part of you too. There's something about your vulnerability coming through, shining, this authenticity, this realness. That's what the world wants to see. They want to see your true grit. They want to see what it's like when hands are in the dirt and tears are down the face and, just real, hardcore, real truth. And people are not starved for that, but kind of, where when they see it, they know it. It takes one to know one, and people will flock to that. They don't want to see the picture perfect highlight reel. They want the real. And I think you're going to be the one to bring people together in this way and show us something new, show something different, show like this is how it's actually done. This is how we can present ourselves. We can walk around like hot messes and love ourselves anyway. And this is the work of being human, right? And this is quote unquote spirituality. It's like letting ourselves be still on the path of greatness or whatever we consider that to be, our fullest potential, our greater dreams and aspirations. But I feel like your destiny, your aspiration, your goals are tied to your realness, your authenticity, and your willingness to be vulnerable, and your willingness to share the truth of the now, the truth of your life, the truth of your situation, anywhere you might be quote unquote hiding or trying to protect. And it doesn't mean go out there and give away your guts and, go over the top to where you feel unsafe and have a vulnerability hangover. No, it's like taking a look at those areas where you're still hiding, where you have pretense, where you're trying to show a certain kind of facade, where you're trying to give off a certain kind of vibe or air. Look at those areas. Those are the areas that are wanting to be truly seen in their vulnerability, seen in their quote unquote weakness or flawed perspective or whatever. Why? When we allow that means we've now loved. If we can show that to the world and share that with the world, that means we now love it about ourselves. That means I accept this enough to where I'm willing to put it on a platter and let the world see it. Okay. So let's see what else here. Yeah. So it's no longer something to be ashamed of or something to hide or something to like protect with pretense or facade or a mask or make it all look good or paint it up to make it look really pretty. It's kind of like, having like a flawed face, and right, I don't actually believe in a flawed face. That's kind of my point, is real is the perfection, but it's like we cover it up with makeup, and it doesn't mean you have to go walk around without makeup. I'm wearing makeup, so there's no judgment here, but this is the message of the thing. So no longer needing to be ashamed of those parts we generally try to hide and keep away from the world or not tell anybody. We keep close to our chest because we're scared, because we want to be seen as strong, because we don't know how to show up and let ourselves be cared for, let ourselves be supported, let ourselves be held. And so we hold it all in. We try to be strong, wear the pretense and the facade, and we want people to believe a certain thing about us. We've got it all together. We've been successful or whatever. That's how it generally is. But it's like letting go of that belief system. It's kind of, or that identity. It's all being held up by just fakeness. Okay. And we all do this to a degree. So there's no judgment, right? Letting go of that and freeing yourself, liberating yourself to be vulnerable, liberating yourself to feel your feelings, liberating yourself to be angry, liberating yourself to be messy, liberating yourself to be makeup free, liberating yourself to let your fat hang out, liberating yourself to be all out there in the open, stark naked for yourself. And then as a result, also in front of the world. This is what gets you. This is your key for many of you, or even for some of you, to many. This is your key to success, is letting it all hang out, letting your hair down and not giving a fuck. You see what I'm saying? That's a huge part of your destiny. So a lot of you are like, bingo, this is it. I know it. This is me, whatever. Perfect. For some of you, it may not be that way or will eventually, and you'll get there. For some of you, there's even fame destined in these cards. So for some of you who like to share on social media or plan to write a book or whatever, no, this is a part of you. It's about showing your bleeding heart. It's about wearing your heart on your sleeve. It's like turning all your cards over so everyone can see your hard cards. You're no longer holding them close here and no one gets to see them. No one knows your hand. This is you going like this. Here's all my cards. You can see it all. When you're able to do that, that means you've loved and accepted yourself well enough to where you can put all your cards on the table. There's no fear. There's no resistance. There's no falsity, falsehood, pretense, facade. There's no lack of authenticity left. All your cards on the table, nothing's left hidden. This is going to support you to feel free. It's going to heal and liberate you. I think that this will be a dramatic shift for you internally, but it's also going to bring out great rewards in your material life. So card pile 3, that's your reading. Please let me know if pile 3 lands for you. I want to know. Tell me your dilemma, your specific situation, and how this relates. Very important. If you just say pile 2 or pile 3, I have no idea, because these go up much later and I forget. So tell me what your situation is, if you feel safe, if you feel comfortable, and I'd love to hear it. Of course, do like, subscribe, share, and I will see you next time. Thank you, card pile 3.